Hello and Namaste. Welcome to the first edition of the COP28 update from the Climate Change Governance Negotiation of the United Nations. As in last years, we are bringing this before the COP opens on November 30th, and we will be bringing you more updates during the COP and after the COP ends on December 12th. We are really looking at the negotiations with the perspective of physical climate change exceeding what the IPCC and other agencies have predicted some years back. As you might have noticed, November 17 this year was a day where the global average temperature touched 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average of 1850 to 1900. Our goal, if you recall, in the Paris Agreement of 2015 was not to let the temperature go beyond or keep it well below 2 degrees Celsius average from the pre-industrial. This year is going to be, along with this November 17 date, large number of days, around 90 days of the year have already crossed 1.5 degrees Celsius average from the pre-industrial average. These are the global average temperatures, not individual countries or places. We are also seeing massive scale of disaster, climate-driven disaster all across the globe. Not only in India, but across the globe, in Europe, China, heat waves, massive flooding and rainfalls, and massive storms, unusually large number of strong storms. We have seen the highest sea surface temperatures as per record for the last 120 years. We have seen the recorded temperature this year by the estimates of World Meteorological Organization and NASA GIS. This year, 2023, is most likely to be the hottest year in the last 160 years of recorded history, and this year is also likely to cross the average temperature of 1.5 degrees Celsius. That doesn't mean that it will be a permanent thing, but this is the first time in recorded history that the Earth's average temperature, global average temperature, is crossing or touching 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial average. On this background, we are talking about what the COP28, the 28th Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which will open in Dubai on the November 30th. This is going to discuss on this perspective. Let us see what are the main issues before COP28 and what are the country governments which are parties to the convention, they will be doing, parties to the convention and parties to the Paris Agreement. They will be doing and they will be negotiating on. One of the most important thing, because the climate change is driven by fossil fuel burnt greenhouse gas emissions, mostly carbon dioxide and methane, also nitrous oxide and other greenhouse gases. But what the most important thing is phasing out or completely stopping the use of fossil fuels over a period of time, which is called the fossil fuel phase out. Over the last 2 years from COP26 in Glasgow, this is on the table, but this has never been agreed. In COP26, the fossil fuel phase out was not touched, but the coal phase out was put on the table. But due to opposition by several country governments, coal phase out was also not adopted. In this COP, one of the primary push for developing, poor and most vulnerable countries will be for a treaty to moving towards a treaty or moving towards an agreement where fossil fuel phase out is agreed. But that's not feasible as per present situation. There is one discomforting information, that is this COP, which everybody knows, all of us know. This COP is being presided over by one of the countries which is one of the largest oil and gas producers, United Arab Emirates. The president of the COP is the head of the ADNOC, that is the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. So in these circumstances, how much the fossil fuel phase out of oil and gas, also along with coal, will be accepted is a point of concern. Just a few days ago, there was a report leakage, which says that the Dubai and Abu Dhabi governments, they are using this COP to negotiate for more oil and gas deals with many other countries, around 27 other countries. Before coming to this, the US, which claims leadership because of its Climate Change Reduction Act, etc., they are also negotiating opening up licensing, financing new oil and gas fields. So this is the background. But one of these most important discussions and negotiations will be fossil fuel phase out, or as the countries have started saying, phasing out unabated fossil fuels. That means the fossil fuels by burning of which emits carbon dioxide, that carbon dioxide can be sequestered or soaked in. So those kind of unproven technologies are being pushed, but non-unabated fossil fuels are to be phased out. That's at least some kind of understanding, but that's it's difficult that if we go into that. The other most important discussion that is there under this COP28 table or on the COP28 table is the loss and damage fund. As we know, last year in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, the COP27 finally, after decades of haggling, decades of demand by developing countries, they adopted a loss and damage fund. A loss and damage fund is basically to give support to developing countries, poor countries, vulnerable countries who are suffering damages from climate-driven extremes, despite whatever little mitigation and adaptation is being done. So that is one of the most important things on the table. Unfortunately, we have seen that the decision for hosting the loss and damage fund for the first 4 years in the World Bank has been taken, which the developing countries have been opposing strongly, but the developed countries having control of the World Bank, they have pushed this. The fossil fuel phase out seems to be going nowhere at this point, and we have to push more for this. There is a thing called Global Goal on Adaptation, which was adopted earlier, but which has not been really finalized and put in place. As probably we know that roughly less than 20%, less than even 15% of the global climate finance, which is categorized as climate finance, goes to adaptation. Most of it goes to mitigation. Whereas many financial institutions earlier said we'll put at least 50% or try to put 50% to adaptation. That has not gone on. So the climate finance goal of $100 billion per year post 2020 or starting 2020 has not been reached as of now. And the actual estimation of needs for climate finance have gone into trillions. Even the UNFCCC's own estimate shows multiple trillions of dollars. The International Energy Agency has estimated that just for the energy transition, it will be requiring something like $2.5 to $3.5 trillion every year globally. So the goal of $100 billion finance is really nothing if you have to consider that even the poorer and low income and middle income countries have to transition their economies beyond fossil fuels. There is a new demand for new collective quantified goal for climate finance, which will be a contentious issue this year. There are several pledges from last several COPs, like the forest pledge, where total deforestation, forest deforestation will be totally stopped by 2030. We have not seen much progress, though there was some promise about financing. The global methane pledge, where 30% of methane production will be phased out, methane emissions will be phased out by 2030. That we have seen not much progress, though it is touted as a low-hanging fruit. Then there is several other issues, just transition of energy, and that based on countries like South Africa, Vietnam, Indonesia, which are major coal users and dependent, their entire economies are highly dependent on coal. They were promised country-specific supports of billions of dollars by the developed countries. Some have materialized, many of these are still to materialize. The global stocktake is one of the most important exercises that is being undertaken. There was, after the first set of NDCs were submitted in Paris, agreed in Paris, submitted in Paris, the second set of NDCs were submitted, and the first global stocktake analysis of how much the countries have actually achieved on their pledges and what needs to be done, where we are going. That report, synthesis report, was released on the 8th of September, and major discussion will take place as the global stocktake report, the 17 points highlighted in the global stocktake, is clearly showing that we have not gone really anywhere close to what is required to give real meaning to Paris Agreement targets, that is keeping the global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius. The global stocktake clearly indicates that we will go beyond 2.4, maybe even up to 2.9. So these are major issues before the COP28 starting on 30th, and we'll come back to you with more details during the COP. Thank you.